You sure you are at the right place? I guess I had asked him this for the fourth or was it the fifth time? But what else could I have done? He isn't supposed to be here, or was it I who was at the wrong place? After all, I had no business here, on this cute date with the most adorable guy ever, even though I'm pretty sure I'm anything but straight. But here's the catch. I don't think I'm allowed to be anything other than straight. Cooper laughed, a bright, cheerful sound that put me a little more at ease. I'm definitely sure. I'm at the right place, Anthony. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The initial shock of seeing a man instead of the usual blind date, especially the one set up by my parents, was starting to wear off, replaced by a strange sense of curiosity and excitement. Cooper was not only adorable, but had this infectious energy that was hard to resist. Okay, well, I'm glad you're here, I said, managing a smile. Shall we sit? We both took our seats, and yet I couldn't help but feel a bit conflicted. Was this some kind of mistake? Or had my parents finally accepted who I was? The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if it was one of their tricks to check whether I'm truly straight? Well, in that case, wouldn't this be like a final test before they finally chuck me out? It's not like I can't live on my own. It's just that I never have. So, how do you know my parents? I asked, still trying to piece together the puzzle. Cooper grinned. I don't actually. My parents do. They thought we might hit it off. Could this be a good friend's influence, I wondered? Wow, I muttered, still a bit stunned. This is unexpected. Unexpected, but not unwelcome, I hope? Cooper asked, his eyes twinkling. I laughed, feeling some of the tension ease out of me. No, definitely not unwelcome. The conversation started awkwardly, with me fumbling through my words, but Cooper's easygoing nature quickly put me at ease. He told me about his work as a photographer, and I found myself genuinely fascinated by his stories. Photography has always been a way for me to connect with people and see the world differently, Cooper explained, his passion shining through. It's amazing how a single photo can tell a whole story. That sounds incredible, I said, feeling more comfortable. I've always admired people who can see the world through a different lens. Cooper laughed. Well, I bet you have your own unique perspective too. What do you do, Anthony? I'm in marketing, I said, suddenly feeling a bit self-conscious. My job seems so ordinary compared to his. I help companies with their branding and advertising. That's awesome, Cooper said, genuinely interested. It must be cool to shape how people see a brand. As the night went on, I realized how easy it was to talk to Cooper. He had this vibe about him that can instantly put you in a happy mood, and I found myself laughing and sharing stories I hadn't thought about in years. It was like we had known each other forever. By the time we finished dinner, I didn't want the evening to end. Cooper suggested we take a walk, and I eagerly agreed. We strolled through the nearby park, talking about everything, from our favorite movies to our dreams for the future. It was the most fun and relaxed I had felt in a long time. When we finally said goodbye, I couldn't stop smiling. Thanks for tonight, Cooper. I had a great time. Me too, Anthony. Let's do this again soon, he said, giving me a warm hug that left me feeling giddy. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't believe how the night had turned out. Here, I was expecting another awkward blind date, but instead, I had met someone who made me feel happy and comfortable in a way I hadn't felt in years. I gotta thank my parents. The next day. Somebody came home late last night, huh? My dad teased me as I walked into the kitchen, still half asleep. Don't tease him like that, hon, my mother said, but her tone was even more teasing than my dad's. So, Anthony, how was she? Mom. I could feel my face turning crimson, but soon it all washed away. I stopped dead in my tracks as I registered what she inquired. Wait, she? I echoed, my heart sinking. They couldn't mean Cooper, could they? Yeah, the girl we set you up with, my mom said, looking at me expectantly. How was your date? My heart dropped into my stomach as I understood everything. Of course, they meant a girl. I felt stupid for even considering my parents had changed magically out of nowhere. It was nice, I stammered, feeling a mix of panic and disappointment. Really nice. My dad grinned. That's great to hear. We were hoping you'd hit it off. She is our close friend's daughter. Treat her well, my mother explained. I nodded, still lost in my thoughts when I realized that Cooper said the same thing. I distinctly remembered him saying something about the parents. Does that mean he knew everything? I forced a smile, my mind racing. I couldn't believe I had let myself get carried away with the idea that my homophobic parents had somehow accepted me for who I was. It had been a misunderstanding all along, and if what I have concluded is true, then Cooper knew everything and chose to hide it from me. But why? Yeah, it was, a good time, I managed to say, grabbing a piece of toast and mumbling something about needing to get ready for work, desperate to escape the conversation. As soon as I got out of there, I felt a wave of anger and frustration wash over me. Not at my parents, but at myself. How could I have been so foolish to think that my parents would ever accept me as I am? The memory of last night's joy turned sour in my mind, replaced by the bitter taste of disappointment. Later that evening, determined to get some answers, I decided to confront Cooper. I needed to know if he knew about the mix-up. Maybe he was in on it, or maybe he was as clueless as I was. At least I hoped he was, even though everything I learned so far pointed otherwise. So after work, I reached his studio. He mentioned working during our date. Cooper! I yelled as I stormed into his studio, my anger bubbling over. You lying piece of shit! I bellowed, my voice echoing off the walls. How could you lie to me like this? Why did you lie to me? Cooper looked up, startled, his eyes wide with surprise. But he didn't say anything. He just hung his head low and stared at his shoes, his shoulders slumped. The fact that he didn't even deny it infuriated me further. I felt my anger boiling over as I charged through his studio, heading straight for his collar. Answer me! I said, why did you lie to me? I'm sorry, Cooper finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. His eyes were filled with regret and sadness. Sorry? That's it? I snapped, feeling a surge of frustration. Do you have any idea what you've done? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, Anthony. I really didn't. Then what did you mean to happen? I demanded, my grip on his collar tightening. I liked you, Cooper admitted, his voice breaking. I saw your photo and I couldn't resist. I thought if I had a chance to meet you, even just once, it would be worth it. I let go of his collar, stepping back. You thought lying to me was worth it? You thought deceiving me was worth it? I didn't think it through, he said, his voice desperate. I was caught up in the moment. I'm sorry, Anthony. Truly, I am. I turned away, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do anything to make the pain go away. But all I could do was stand there, my mind racing with a million thoughts. I can't believe you, I said finally, my voice shaking. I'm really sorry, he said softly. I never wanted to hurt you. Well, you did, I shot back, my voice hard. You hurt me more than you can imagine. Cooper didn't say anything. He just stood there, defeated. I turned and walked out of the studio, not trusting myself to say anything more. Back in my car, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. I tried to push the memories of those few golden hours with Cooper out of my mind, but it was impossible. His smile, his laugh, the way he made me feel, it was all buried into my memory. A week later. What the fuck? This was all I could say as I saw dozens of my photographs on Cooper's handle. More than half his feed was nothing but my face staring right back at me. The past few days have gone by in a blur. No matter how much I tried to ease back into my old schedule, throwing myself into work and routine, I couldn't shake the memories of Cooper. They haunted me, making it impossible to focus on anything else. I found myself thinking about him at the most inconvenient times. In the middle of a meeting, while driving, even while trying to fall asleep. His face was always there, a constant reminder of what I wished my life to be. This is exactly what led me to this situation, unable to stop myself from missing him. One evening, as I was lying on the couch, I decided to stalk him. Not my finest judgment, however, as I opened his profile, Well, nothing could have honestly prepared me for what I saw, to say the least. I scrolled down his feed, and my eyes widened in shock. There was my face, staring back at me. Not just once or twice, but over and over again. Half of his feed was filled with photos of me. And these weren't just from our date. They were from weeks, even months before we had ever met. What the hell? I muttered to myself, sitting up straighter. I clicked on one of the photos, a candid shot of me walking down a busy street. The timestamp showed it was taken nearly a month ago. I scrolled further, finding more and more photos of me. At a coffee shop, sitting in the park, laughing with friends. Each photo was accompanied by a caption. Things like, "Saw him again today. His smile was brighter than the sun." And, "My favorite muse. Wish he knew I existed." My mind was racing. Why did Cooper have so many photos of me? Why had he been following me around, taking these pictures? It felt invasive, almost stalkerish, but at the same time, there was a strange sense of flattery. Yet I needed answers, or maybe I was just looking for another excuse to talk to him, and this really seemed more than good. So I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, my heart pounding as I drove to Cooper's studio. An hour later. Confused and desperate for answers, I headed over to Cooper's studio. However, just as I was about to knock, I glanced through the glass door and saw Cooper with a girl. The sight was far from pleasing. They looked way too cozy and friendly to just be friends. She was laughing and touching his arm ever so slightly, and it hit me hard. I felt a wave of jealousy and hurt. What was I even thinking coming all the way here? I muttered to myself. I couldn't deal with this right now. I turned on my heel and walked away, heading straight for a bar. I drank more than I should have, hoping to drown out those infuriating emotions inside me. Later that night, I honestly thought I had one too many for a moment there, because as I got home around dinner time, sitting with my parents at the dinner table, I saw the same girl from Cooper's studio. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out in a very "who even are you" tone, feeling a mix of shock and confusion. My parents looked at me, puzzled. The girl gave me a friendly smile. "Maybe you're too drunk to remember me from our recent date," she said with a playful tone. This was all I needed to understand the situation. I quickly picked up on it and decided to go along with it. But just as I was trying to wrap my head around this, things took another surprising turn. The moment I sat down for dinner, Cooper appeared before me, that too from somewhere inside the house. "What the hell? Cooper? What are you doing here?" I demanded, feeling my frustration bubble up. Cooper calmly pointed to the girl and said, "I'm here with my sister." I stared at him in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." I felt like my brain exploded over a million times. "I just can't deal with this right now." I snapped and walked out into the darkness. I walked out of the house. My thoughts were a mess. I needed to clear my head. I didn't even know where I was going. I just wanted to get as far away from that mess as possible. Little did I know, the mess was actually following me, trying to catch up. "Anthony," he said, catching up with me. "Wait, please, let me explain." I turned to face him, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. "Explain what exactly? Why you lied to me? Or why you were sneaking around taking pictures of me? Or how I was supposed to be on a date with your sister but you showed up?" "I thought you were happy I showed up," he said quietly. "That's not the freaking point," I yelled further, losing patience. "I'm sorry," Cooper said, looking genuinely distressed. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just, I have sort of known you for a little longer than you have known me, and I have liked you since. The reason my feed is filled with your face is because your face is the most beautiful thing my camera has ever captured. And as for why I was on a date with you instead of my sister, well, that's because I wanted to. I like you, Anthony. I have liked you for a very long time now. When I found out my sister was set up on a date with you, I couldn't let the opportunity pass." What are you saying? Since when have you known me? This is all very confusing. I just can't deal with this right now." I turned to leave, but before I could leave, Cooper pulled me by my hand towards him and kissed me. It was sudden and intense. My first reaction was to kiss him back, but then reality hit. I pushed him away, glaring at him. How How could you just take my first kiss away like that? Cooper looked down, his face red with embarrassment. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to take anything from you. I just wanted to be honest about how I feel. I've been captivated by you for a long time. When I saw the chance to meet you, I was excited but nervous. I was still feeling a whirlwind of emotions. You had all these pictures of me and you never said a word about it? You kept it a secret, and you kept the date thing a secret. Don't you see? You have been doing nothing but lying to me since we met? Cooper nodded, his voice trembling. I should have told you everything from the start. I was afraid you'd think I was a creep, but I didn't want to lose the chance to be with you. I stood there, trying to make sense of it all. The mix of anger, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite name left me feeling overwhelmed. After a lot of back and forth with Cooper explaining and me grilling him with questions, I found myself slowly softening. Look, I said, my voice quiet. I don't know if I can just forget all this, but maybe, just maybe, we can figure this out. Cooper's face lit up with relief. He reached out and pulled me into a hug. I hesitated for a moment, but then I let myself sink into his embrace. Thank you for giving me a chance, Cooper said softly. We stood there for a while, wrapped up in each other's arms. It was clear that things were complicated, but honestly, I would take complicated over feeling like the way I had in the past couple of days any day. A week later. Surprise! He said with a huge basket in his hand, practically bouncing with excitement. We're going on a picnic. Dating Cooper was no easy deal. I learned that pretty quickly. I, on the one hand, was pretty serious and liked an okay-ish life. Cooper, on the other hand, had this immense passion for life and lived it to the fullest, which sometimes meant extracurricular for me after work. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had just come back from a long week at work to see him, but there he was, standing with a big grin, holding a picnic basket. I raised an eyebrow. A picnic? In the dark? It's a little chilly out. He winked. That's why I got a blanket and some hot cocoa. Come on, it'll be fun. I laughed. All right, you've convinced me. Let's go. We headed to the park, where Cooper had picked the perfect spot under a big oak tree. He spread out the blanket and set up the basket, pulling out sandwiches, fruit, and a thermos of hot cocoa. The setup was simple but perfect, with a few twinkling fairy lights strung around the branches for a touch of magic. He was good at this. As we settled down, Cooper poured the hot cocoa into cups and handed one to me. To a perfect day, he said, raising his cup, and to my perfect partner. I echoed, clinking my cup against his. We chatted about everything and nothing. At one point, Cooper reached over and stole a grape from my plate. I playfully scolded him, but he just laughed and fed me a strawberry in return. Hey, I've got a game for us, he said with a mischievous grin. Oh, really? What's the game? I asked, curious. It's called Guess the Flavor. You close your eyes and I feed you something and you have to guess what flavor it is. He smiled, showing his perfect set of teeth. God, what I was gonna do to him. I laughed. Alright, I'm game. Cooper placed a jelly bean in my mouth and watched eagerly as I chewed. I wrinkled my nose. Is it cotton candy? He clapped. You got it. Now it's my turn. However, instead of putting some candy or fruit in his mouth, I placed my lips on his, making sure he tasted every bit of me. My new favorite flavor. He cooed and I blushed. The game continued with both of us laughing and making silly guesses. By the end of it, I was in Cooper's arms around me as his warm breath mingled with mine. Thanks for coming with me today. It was really nice. He smiled as the gold-pink hues from the sunset adorned his face. God, if this is a dream, never let me wake up, I said, touching his cheek and pulling him in for one more kiss. A month later. One rainy Sunday, we decided to have a cozy movie marathon at home. The weather outside was dreary, but inside, we made the living room our little haven. Cooper set up a fort with blankets and pillows on the couch, creating a snug space where we could relax. I've got the snacks, Cooper announced triumphantly, with popcorn and soda cans in his hand. I grinned at him. You're the best. I've got the movies ready to go. We snuggled into the fort, surrounded by blankets and pillows, and started flipping through the movie options. Cooper leaned against me, his head resting on my shoulder. What's first on the list? Let's start with that rom-com you love, I suggested. I know it's your favorite. Cooper's face lit up. Perfect choice. He reached over and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. As the movie started, we settled into our cozy spot. Cooper kept feeding me popcorn and occasionally reaching over to adjust the blanket around us. Every now and then, he'd lean in and whisper something funny or sweet, making me laugh. However, halfway through the movie, the emotional setting of both the movie and the one in our room started to change. Cooper had gotten a little quieter than usual, and I could tell something was bothering him. He seemed lost in thought, his eyes far away. I reached over and touched his head. Hey, what's on your mind? I asked gently. Nothing, he said softly, his voice a bit shaky. I could tell he wasn't being honest. You know you can tell me anything, right? He nodded and looked down at his hands. It's about my family. When I came out to them, it didn't go well. They cut me off. My heart sank. I knew from bits and pieces that his relationship with his family wasn't the best, but hearing it so directly was different. I'm so sorry, Cooper. That must have been really hard. He nodded again, his eyes glistening. Yeah, it was. They were really upset. They said things I never thought they'd say. Things that made me feel like I wasn't worth their love anymore. It was like being pushed out of the only world I had known. I reached out and took his hand in mine, squeezing it gently. I can't imagine how tough that must have been on you. But you've got me. I'm here for you, always. He managed a small smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I know, and it means more to me than you can imagine. My sister was the only one who stood by me. She's the only family I have. I don't know what I'd do without her. I could see the pain in his eyes. However, I dreaded what I knew was about to come more. Cooper took a deep breath and looked up at me, his expression serious. There's something else. I know we've been taking things slow, and I understand that coming out is a big step, but I've been wondering, when will you be ready to make things official? I mean, when will you feel comfortable coming out to your family? There it is. I knew he wanted to talk about this for a long time. I myself had been thinking about it. I just haven't been able to muster up the courage yet. I took a deep breath, feeling a knot form in my chest. I've been so afraid, Cooper. Afraid of what my parents might say. Afraid of losing their support. I know it's not fair to you. You've been so open and brave, and here I am still hiding. He reached out and touched my face gently. It's okay to be scared. It's a huge thing to deal with. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I believe in us. I just want to be with you openly, without any secrets. I understand. I'll get to it as soon as I can, I said half-heartedly. Cooper pulled me into a tight hug, resting his head on my shoulder. I love you, Anthony, and no matter what, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. I held him close, feeling the warmth of his embrace, but the dread of coming out to my parents still. I love you too, Cooper. A couple of months later. Things haven't been exactly smooth sailing for Cooper and me. We had our share of problems, and I was still trying to figure everything out. I was scared still about what my parents would say if they found out about us. They'd always seemed pretty set in their ways, and the last thing I wanted was to end up cut off as Cooper had been by his own family. Cooper and I had been giving each other the silent treatment for a bit, even though he tried his best to stay calm and present. It was a tough situation. He wanted confirmation, and I knew he deserved more. It was just that it was easier said than done. However, it had been affecting our relationship. The unresolved issues were weighing heavily on us both, and it felt like our relation's band had tensed so much, ready to snap at any moment of time. I knew I couldn't keep hiding from my parents forever. It was only a matter of time before I had to face the truth and come out to them. I was dreading it, though. I imagined the worst case scenarios, being kicked out, losing their support, and just feeling completely alone. I'll do it tomorrow, I said to Cooper out of nowhere. Huh? What? He replied, dazed. I said, I'll talk to my parents tomorrow. Oh, okay. Let me know how it goes. And I'm here for you, he said, not entirely believing me. I couldn't even blame him. I had been putting it off for months now. The next day, Anthony. My dad came into my room early in the morning, holding up some pictures. What's going on here? I felt my heart sink as I saw pictures of me and Cooper kissing in his hand. Seeing those pictures in his hands, I knew this was it. The moment of truth had arrived. I tried to keep my composure, but the anger and years of frustration bubbled up. Why are you even showing me this? I snapped. Do you really think this is fair? You never gave me a chance to tell you on my own terms, and now you act all surprised? My mom was shocked, but her face softened a bit as she looked upset. We're not mad, Anthony. We just didn't know. We were hoping you'd tell us yourself. Tell you myself? I shouted. I've been terrified to tell you because of what you said about other people. Do you think I don't remember you talking about Mr. Jenkins' son and how you could never accept him because he was gay? You made it clear you wouldn't tolerate a son like him. My parents exchanged glances. My mom took a deep breath. We never said we couldn't accept a gay son. We were upset with Mr. Jenkins' son because his son ran away and left him all alone. It wasn't about him being gay. It was about him abandoning his family. I stared at them, completely dumbfounded. So, you're saying you never had a problem with gay people? But you always acted like you did. My dad shook his head. No, Anthony. We may have initially acted like that because we may not have understood everything. But we never meant to make you feel like you couldn't be yourself. We didn't hate Mr. Jenkins because of his son's sexuality. We were upset about the situation, not the reason behind it. It took me a moment to process this. All those years of fearing rejection, of feeling like I had to hide who I was, had been based on a misunderstanding. I felt a wave of relief mixed with anger. Anger at myself for not confronting this sooner, and relief that maybe things weren't as bad as I had feared. I don't know what to say, I admitted, feeling a bit lost. I thought you'd never accept me. I thought I'd be left out in the cold if you found out about Cooper and me. My mom reached out and took my hand. Anthony, we love you no matter what. We never wanted to push you away. We're sorry if we made you feel like you had to hide. My dad nodded in agreement. Yeah, we should have been more understanding. We're learning too. It's not always easy, but we want to support you. We're really sorry, my mom said, squeezing my hand gently. We should have talked to you about this a long time ago. We're glad you're sharing your life with us. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions, and felt years of tension fade away. Thanks for understanding. It means a lot. I just wish things could have been different from the start, I said, taking both of their hands in mine. My dad gave me a reassuring smile. It's never too late to make things right. We want to be here for you, no matter what. With the tension easing, I felt more relaxed. I knew Cooper was waiting for me, and I needed to clear things up with him too. I told my parents I needed to talk to him and headed out the door. Later that evening, when I arrived at Cooper's place, I found him pacing back and forth, looking anxious. As soon as he saw me, he rushed over and pulled me into a hug. I'm so sorry for everything, Anthony. I know it's been rough, and I'm sorry. I should have never pushed you. I hugged him back, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. It's okay. You didn't push me. I should have done this months ago, but I think we can work through this. Cooper looked at me with a hopeful expression. You think so? I nodded. Yeah, I think we can. There's still a lot to talk about, but we can figure it out together. And with that, I pulled him in for a long, the relief of returning home sort of kiss, and he melted right into it. Conclusion. As we sat together, I told him everything, and the air between us felt lighter. The misunderstandings and fears from before were still there, but now we had a chance to address them openly. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was worth fighting for. In the end, we were able to move forward. With my parents understanding and accepting me, and with Cooper and me working through our issues, things started to fall into place. We had a long road ahead of us, but we were ready to face it together, with honesty and love guiding us through. After all, I had my literal sunshine with me, and he had his personal muse. Oh, and P.S., Cooper's sister sent those photographs to my parents, just 'cause she couldn't see her brother struggling like that anymore. I honestly can't even be mad at her. The end. Would you face your fears for love? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and feel free to go and check out our Ko-Fi page. Stay wholesome.